I come from the food industry. I have worked in R&D. I've developed many, many products over a lot of years. And part of that role was around, what does this look like on pack? And when you have something on pack, what is the consumer, what are they taking away from that message? What is their takeaway message? And how do you then differentiate yourself on shelf? You've got that microsecond of decision making, and so everything must come into play: brand, messaging, and science. So there's a lot to squeeze into a very short amount of time. But when a consumer takes a step back and spends some time to do some research, which I think more and more are now doing, that's where the messaging really starts to play. And that's where the science really comes in. The one constant in that is integrity in science. It's the one thing that consumers will, and continuously, I believe, will trust. But it must be simple. It must be pure. It must be like, here is a simple message, and here is the very complicated science behind it, but we've simplified it so that you, the consumer, can take the message away with confidence and, be confident that what we're saying is real and what it is true. GCP, good clinical practice. That is a gold standard within research. It's applicable to the drug industry, and we run studies applicable to the food or nutraceutical industry, so we run to GCP standard, okay? That is a big burden on us, the CRO. We have to do an awful lot of rechecking and monitoring, and there's a lot involved in a GCP study. But some, not all of our clients, really like that level of integrity, because there is no higher standard. And so that's good science. Full GCP rigor, or as it applies to your product, where the study is run, it's reproducible. Health claims are very limited in what you can say. Obviously, with a very small amount of space, and I think the best thing companies can do is allude to research you've done through the website, and you should push people through landing pages on your website or the website in general, and then you can really talk about your science instead of trying to package it, unpack, and trying to get the whole message out there. Very difficult to do. And I think you should give them the opportunity in their own time, not on supermarket shelf where they have that very limited time and everyone's under pressure, but give them the opportunity at home when they're under less pressure to take a look at what you have to say and what you have to offer. The tools we use are very much aimed at extracting what it is you want to say, and in that sense that makes your differentiator, and so you can use that information, but it needs to be simple. And I'm not running down the consumer. The consumer is a smarter animal than we often give it credit for, and we're all consumers, but we just need the message distilled. We don't need to hear all the blah blah around the messaging. Just you need to deliver the message so that everybody understands. Standardization to somebody like me, somebody in the industry we're in, is like utopia. I would love to see standardization, because it creates that trust. At least it's a solid base, a solid building block. And if you can trust the base, then you can make all sorts of other messages built on a solid base. The reason we started trials in GCP rigor, was exactly that reason. You couldn't question the science. It's done to GCP. Everything is transparent. We can give you the entire. When you get your clinical report, or a company gets a clinical report, and if they choose to publish, that entire methodology is published, and everything about that trial is completely transparent. And so it's so that peers can review it and say, well, that's not really the right methodology, or it should have been done a different way. That doesn't apply, because it will have been poured over by our science team, by the client, by experts within the field, and we reach out far and wide to make sure the design is as good as it possibly can be, using our PIs, internal PIs, and external key opinion leaders that we work with. So it would be great if there was standardization across science, across supply chain, across ingredient technology. We have to work with what we have. So as it stands today, we have a supply chain. It's not always perfect. We have a consumer base, I feel, who's confused. We have an industry who's really good at, there's a lot of innovation. They're really good at driving science forward, albeit at a slower pace. But maybe technology and AI will drive that forward faster. There's opportunity everywhere. And as the industry evolves, more and more opportunity comes to the fore. because now we have better science, we have more information, we have better understanding of pathways, we have better understanding of maybe our microbiome and how it interacts with the rest of our physiology. It won't happen overnight. Applying science is one step at a time. You learn something, you take that learning and you learn something else, and whether that's not always through clinical trials, but as a company, your company should evolve through baby step learning, that's how science has evolved, that's how education has evolved. So there's a real opportunity there. I also feel there's opportunity as an industry. We need to lobby more. Like, regulators are politicians. Politicians drive policy, they drive regulation, they pull all the strings, and politicians are subject to the public. We're the people who put them in power. And supplementation and nutraceuticals they're an inherent part of our diet. They're not just an add-on or an addendum anymore. And so we need to change how it's regulated, how the messaging is controlled, how the standardization is applied. The medical industry has tapped in, and they go after the symptoms of disease. They don't really sometimes they cure disease, whereas this industry has a real opportunity to improve quality of life.